This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. 5 years ago, deep in a bear market, a group of traditional finance experts founded BitGet, and they've been building ever since. Now, with 20 million users worldwide, BitGet is committed to helping users trade smarter by providing a secure one-stop crypto investment solution with copy trading, future trading, and spot trading. Your security is their priority, and BitGet has one of the largest protection funds in the industry with US $300 million to cover potential trader losses from unforeseen events that are not due to misconduct from the user or platform. BitGet wants to inspire everyone to embrace Web3, so if you're new to crypto, learn more at the BitGet Academy with free blockchain courses, crypto guides, cryptocurrency trading strategies, and more. Or for the experienced investor, trade smarter with daily access to institutional-grade crypto market intelligence and trends analysis with BitGet Research. I've put links to BitGet Research and the BitGet Academy in the show notes, so get amongst it or simply go to bitget.com. Thank you to BitGet, and now it is on with the show. My guest today is Austin Fedora. Austin is the head of strategy at Solana Foundation, working across the Solana ecosystem on a variety of initiatives, I'm sure. Welcome to the show, Austin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. Look, let's do what we do at the beginning of the show, Austin. It'd be great if you could please introduce yourself. I'd love to hear just a little bit of your personal and professional backstory, what you've been doing in the lead up to getting involved with Solana.
Yeah, certainly. So today, now I'm the head of strategy at the Solana Foundation. So I've been at the organization first at Solana Labs and now at the Solana Foundation for about 3 years. So joined the project in the very beginning of 2021 in January. And before that, I was working for Bison Trails, running product marketing for them. And Bison Trails was a blockchain infrastructure company that got acquired by Coinbase at the very end of 2020. Before that, I worked for, more on the investment side and, going back working for startups. But my original career trajectory was actually as a journalist. So my first 2 years out of school, I spent working for an NPR member station and the Boston Globe and PRI. So pretty big change from that into the world of startups and technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And so is Solana, is that your first, endeavor in the blockchain space?
No, so I originally started working in the space in mid-2017 when I joined a fintech company that was starting to build out some blockchain borrow-lend solutions at the time. It was sort of an attempt to save that company. And that product never ended up shipping. The company basically went bankrupt. But that was the first real exposure for me to building something on blockchain, and I got hooked. So after that, I went to work for Republic, which is a private investment platform for non-accredited investors, and launched Republic Crypto with the team there. And that was really, from then on, I've been working in the blockchain space. But this was the first time actually going to work for a proper layer 1 or layer 2 protocol. Before that, I was more either on the investment side or sort of on the blockchain infrastructure side, as opposed to working for a foundation itself.
Got it. Thank you, Austin. So, yeah, I mean, Solana's it's a fascinating one, and I'm sure you can appreciate the nuance behind that. There's a multitude of reasons why Solana is interesting and kind of divisive in some ways as well. But we can talk about that as we go deeper into the show. But to begin with, Austin, I suppose it would be good just to understand, you talk about Solana obviously as a layer 1 blockchain and, various layer 1 blockchains, which in theory are decentralized distributed ledgers, but many of them still have, foundations attached to them. So maybe just explain a little bit about the structure and I suppose the vision or the goals or the purpose really of the Solana Foundation and what it does.
Yeah, certainly. So all blockchains except for Bitcoin have a foundation involved with them. And the foundation is a nonprofit, usually based in Switzerland. And that foundation and nonprofit really is set up for things like grant giving. And it's really important that these things are set up as nonprofits and usually Swiss foundations. There's a few other jurisdictions that work too, because that's really set up to protect the integrity of the organization over the long term. A Swiss foundation, the charter is very hard to change, unlike a US-based nonprofit, because you don't want someone to be able to come in and redirect the foundation into something with a profit-seeking motive behind it or something along those lines. And so the foundations really don't have much power besides the power of the purse, right? We are we are a primary agent that gives grants on the Solana network. The first grant the foundation gave was to Solana Labs for initial development of the network. But now there are 5 different core contributor teams building on the network that have received grants from the Solana Foundation. And we do a lot of the work on sort of promotion and marketing in terms of like awareness around what's getting built on the network and how people might be able to sort of use that. So these things operate somewhere in between sort of like a proper nonprofit that gives out grants and sort of a industry trade group in some ways that's sort of lobbying on behalf of its members. But in our case, our members are just anyone that uses the Solana blockchain. And so it's a very interesting place to sit. We're sort of like almost a city government, you could say, for a blockchain, except we don't actually have a police force or any real power. So it's kind of an interesting place to be in.
Absolutely. All right, then. So, look, just I suppose for the benefit of anyone who is unaware, it'd just be good to hear it from yourself, Austin. So, I suppose, make the case as to why you see Solana as, I guess a premium or premier layer 1 blockchain, and what are the advantages it might have over other ecosystems.
Yeah, so core to the design principles of the Solana blockchain are that it should be fast, cheap to use, and scale into the future. And so these are 3 components that are pretty hard to find nowadays in a blockchain. So what does this really mean? This means that one global state is like the way we describe Solana. There's one database, for lack of a better word. There's one environment where everyone's transactions interact and where all of the applications that use Solana actually execute. This is, if you're used to Bitcoin or Ethereum, this is how Bitcoin and Ethereum work on the main networks today, right? But Ethereum's limited to, 14 to 20 transactions per second on that one global state for Ethereum. Solana regularly pushes 6,000 transactions per second and has capacity to go far beyond that. And that is due to a few different key architectural differences of how the network is actually designed. So starting from sort of first principles, fast, cheap, and scalable are those core values of the network. And so a transaction finalizes in Solana in about 400 milliseconds. And so that is as fast as you expect from a Web 2 service. That really allows you to build the types of applications on Solana you can't build anywhere else, partially because the fees are so low. It's $0.00025 roughly to transact on the network. Compare that to several dollars up to hundreds of dollars for transaction fees on other blockchains. It's a pretty big difference. Additionally, the network is built with parallelization in mind, which means that it can do multiple things at the same time as long as those things are not overlapping. So if you are trying to send one of your friends money and I'm trying to build to mint an NFT, those 2 things can actually happen at the same time. Whereas on other blockchains, they can only do one thing at a time. Like the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, can only do one thing at a time. And so these are just architectural changes that set Solana up for a different set of problems that is addressing than other blockchains. And that's where we've really seen the network find its own and gain a bunch of adoption as people building applications that require a lot of transactions, and they require those transactions to be very inexpensive. And that's kind of that core use case for Solana today.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Austin. Just going through, I suppose, some recent news headlines, even I suppose you'd say we're still deep in the bear market. I saw a report from, well, it was provided by you guys, I suppose, earlier this month. Solana Network bolstered by increasing node count and global distribution. So yeah, I think it's the latest validator health report. So as I say, even deep in the bear market, yeah, the Solana network continuing to grow and expand, Austin?
Yeah, so the Validator Health Report is something that we put out about every 6 months or so, and it really provides a snapshot of what the state of the current Solana network is. And this is all publicly available information, right? Blockchains are inherently public. But key to making a blockchain work is decentralization. And there's many ways to measure decentralization. One of them is the total number of nodes, or basically computers running blockchain software all around the world. And so for Solana, that number is about 2,000 nowadays. And that's actually quite good compared to most other networks. Ethereum is only, 4,400 or so. So, we are catching up to Ethereum in terms of total number of node counts. Another metric is called the Nakamoto coefficient, which is basically how many entities would you need to compromise to prevent the network from, continuing to advance. And so, classic example, the Nakamoto coefficient for Bank of America is 1, right? It's just Bank of America. No one else controls that network. For the Federal Reserve, maybe you could say it's a higher number because there's multiple Federal Reserve banks out there, but it's still a very small number of entities that actually control that system. On Solana, there's 31 different entities that would all have to collude together in order to compromise the network. And, that number is pretty high compared to other networks. Ethereum is 25, so which is lower. Near is 9. Polygon is 4. So Solana is actually quite far ahead in terms of its, decentralization in terms of stake distribution. And so this report is really meant to snapshot where Solana is today in terms of decentralization and activity on the network, and provide basically hard numbers for people to make their own evaluations on if the network is sufficiently decentralized, where should they be building software, and kind of why they might want to be building on the Solana network. And we find these things actually matter a lot to folks in terms of determining where and how they should be engaging with blockchain networks.
Yeah, makes sense. Very good. Thank you for that. I guess another news headline, if you like. Visa they're sending a USDC, the stablecoin, to select merchants via Solana as part of some kind of pilot program, Austin?
Yeah, so this is a fun one because they actually started this pilot program years ago, but they were running the pilot program exclusively on Ethereum.
Yes.
And so what they decided is basically, Ethereum's fees are high enough that it doesn't make sense for that to be the main scalable solution over the long term for them. And after, months and months of technical diligence, the engineers at Visa said that they think Solana is a great place for them to expand this program to and scale. And so Visa actually wrote a really great blog post that's kind of really an engineering overview of why they think Solana is a credible blockchain for them to build on through the long term. And it's a great blog post to read. Highly encourage folks to Google it and look at it. Because what they really come to the conclusion of is that this is a network that provides the characteristics they need to build a global payments network on top of. And it's it's really telling that a company like Visa is starting to build on blockchain and build on Solana. I mean, Visa operates a global payments network today. They're one of the major leaders in that space, but their vision is to really expand beyond just, US dollars over the Visa network and go into other types of asset classes and sort of expand what that looks like from a Visa's perspective. And so blockchains, can fit in an important part of being able to sort of do that at scale. And also the cost of transacting on blockchain can actually be cheaper than transacting through something like the Visa network, where, the base rate on Visa is probably about 1 to 1.5% on transaction fees, plus all the other fees that get added on by, other people further down in the stack to mean that a merchant pays anywhere between 2.85 and 3.5% on a credit card. Using blockchain technology, it's possible to lower those fees dramatically. And so that's kind of the real promise of why a company like Visa would be interested in building products and services on Solana.
Yes, and well, same thing for Shopify, though, right? There's a Shopify component.
Yeah, so Shopify is a really interesting company because you think of them as sort of a merchants and payment company, but at its core, Shopify runs, websites that people sell things through on small businesses and large businesses. So from their business model, they don't actually need to process payments to make money. And so they launched, they approved, and the approval is no small feat, right? They approved a module for Solana Pay to be able to be used by Shopify merchants all around the world. And so this means that any merchant can go in, they can say, I'm actually willing to accept payment in USDC on Solana. And that's kind of a big step for one of these places. I mean, it took months and months to get approval from Shopify to sort of add that plugin and that integration to their catalog. But it's them saying, we see the value of people transacting globally with each other anywhere in the world. And, like I had to pay a bill recently and the bill was in euros and the company was in Amsterdam. And like, that is not an easy thing to do, to say I have US dollars in my account and I would like to transact in someone in euros. It's like, oh, I need an IBAN account. Well, where can I get an IBAN account? Like my HSBC account does not have one of those built in. There's a whole process that goes into figuring out, how do I pay this person? What is the exchange rate I have to go into? And blockchain is really a promise to make that whole process a lot simpler, right? This allows anyone anywhere in the world to buy something from a Shopify merchant and not have to worry about tons of transaction fees and sort of having the right type of account or something along those lines. You still have to get the product shipped, but shipping is pretty standard nowadays. So it's pretty cool to see this happen.
Absolutely. And so, sorry, forgive me, Austin. So how long have you been in this role at Solana?
I've been with initially Solana Labs and now Solana Foundation for about 3 years in total.
Yeah. So you obviously will have seen, 3 years, the last 3 years, an incredible amount has happened across the crypto space. So I guess, I'm specifically thinking of what happened with, SBF and the collapse of FTX, ongoing court trial there. But, the close relationship, I suppose, that Sam and his nefarious team of traders had with tokens, for good or bad, such as Solana. Just interested in, what was that like from your point of view? There must have been some pretty intense times watching all of that play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. There was this idea that there was some close relationship between Solana and FTX, which really wasn't true. They invested more money in Polygon, they invested more money in Aptos than they did in Solana. They just happened to be early supporters of the network. And there was probably about a year of time between mid 2021 and early 2022 where they were actually doing work on the network. But other than that, there's actually very little that went on between, the Solana network and FTX or Sam Bankman-Fried. So, from that perspective, I think there was a lot of fear going into when FTX collapsed. This would somehow impact Solana. But what we saw in the months following is that users did not leave, right? Users kept transacting on the network. Builders kept building on the network. And, the network was far stronger 3 or 4 months after the collapse of FTX than it was beforehand. And so, at this point, I think the network has kind of gone through trial by fire, both technologically and socially at this point. And so it's pretty impressive to see how strong of a community there is here, continuing to build on the Solana network.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. For any let's just say for any blockchain to survive over the long term, we need to see the blockchain not only go through the kind of, I guess, bear and bull market cycles and come out the other side, but also be attacked. That's a great way of putting it, actually, because you need these blockchains do need to be resilient to all kinds of different attacks, and we have seen that. I guess one hangover is, of course, the FTX estate, if you like, has, various holdings and investments spread across, all sorts of different, yeah, well, everything from, I think, Anthropic AI to, a lot of different crypto tokens, including Solana. But did I see that the FTX estate have decided to stake a lot of those Solana tokens, Austin?
That seems to be the case. I don't really have any insights beyond what's been publicly reported on that bankruptcy procedure. But many of those tokens are locked for multiple years, right? There's a blog post up on Solana.com that actually goes into all the tokens that were sold to FTX and what those locks are. I think the bankruptcy proceedings have published a lot of that information as well. It's in no one's interest to dump a bunch of tokens on a market and crash the price, right? That is not in the interest of the creditors to FTX, right? The folks who are going to be managing this process will almost certainly be managing it in a responsible fashion. So I think that's something that, folks are definitely tracking and aware of. But it's not something that's sort of on my mind day to day or anything like that. I think at this point, the network is quite resilient to these sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, look, if we zoom out a little bit then, Austin, just curious as to, I guess, your thoughts on, what happens next in terms of the big picture of, I suppose, crypto or Web3, perhaps where the next, the next wave of new users come from, and how are you guys positioning for that?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of different things that have happened this year that have really shown that Solana is the place that you can build consumer-focused applications. And that is like a really big change. So for years, blockchain has sort of been promising, oh, we're almost ready to build consumer-facing applications. And that really hasn't happened yet. But what we've seen this year is there's a whole bunch of applications that are really only possible to build on Solana. And some of these are DeFi applications like Jupiter that really show the power of a network like Solana and its complicated routing systems to get the best price on trades. Or if it's something like the Helium network, which is a decentralized wireless network run by tens of thousands of people all over the world that actually provides cell phone service. You can get eSIMs that run on the Helium network nowadays. Or whether that's, something like Drip, which is distributing, hundreds or 50 million NFTs they've distributed so far as part of this like membership NFT club that they have. And, these things are being used by folks and they don't necessarily even know that the stuff is always built on Solana. There's this group called Teleport that's built a decentralized ride hailing protocol on Solana. And you pay with a credit card, like you can't even really tell it's necessarily built on blockchain until you look under the hood for it. And I think that's really a mark of success, right? No one advertises their, application as being built on AWS or built on GCP. It's like you come here for the application, and that's kind of what people use. And that's really, I think, a huge thing we've seen is that the performance of Solana delivers predictable scaling and delivers predictable price for developers to build things that are consumer facing on top of it. And it's been very cool to see.
Sure. And Austin, you're American. Are you based in the US?
I am. I'm based in New York.
So yeah, just I suppose just curious as to your take on. Obviously, no one knows. It's a big question, and the tide is constantly going in or out. Just in terms of what you see happening, I suppose from a regulatory perspective, because obviously it seems like it's a little bit tough. It has been a bit tougher in the US. Perhaps there are signs that may be softening, perhaps not. But obviously it's a big topic. But just curious as to your thoughts.
Yeah, I think in the U.S. always has had an interesting relationship with blockchain regulation. I'm in New York, where the BitLicense is the dominant form of regulation here, which is, I think, depending on who you ask, either a terrible failure or a huge success. But the United States in general has a whole bunch of laws on the books that could address crypto. The problem that we have here is that there's no clarity, right? So I think everyone building on blockchain today, 99.999% of them, they want to follow the rules. They want to keep themselves out of trouble. They want to just build an awesome application that works for people. The problem today is there's no actual framework to follow. Like if you're building a banking application or a fintech application or, Robinhood or, pick your type of social media application, there's a whole series of rules and regulations and laws that lay out, what your responsibilities are, what they are not. Congress has failed to create any sort of framework. The SEC has not proposed rules that would govern, blockchain either. And so we have this attempted regulation through enforcement now. And regulation through enforcement does not actually clarify what is and is not allowed. It just gets you a list of things that people have been, charged with previously. And, what we've seen is the SEC has actually failed to make many of their cases that have gone before courts at this point. And so, in the US, I think we're in a place where we're going to have to see regulators proposing rules if they want to regulate blockchain, because going through the court system has not necessarily proven to be successful for them at this point. I think that's what everyone wants, right? There's a few stablecoin bills that got traction earlier this year that seemed really strong, right? They would outline what a payment stablecoin is, and there would be, proofs of reserves required and all that. That was really quite interesting. I think that would have helped move the industry forward. And so regulation is not something to be afraid of. I think there's a lot of folks in crypto who seem afraid of regulation. I think regulation provides a lot of needed clarity that's actually holding this industry back. But we're also seeing at the same time, different places in the world, whether it's Singapore or Japan or Dubai, that are creating much more crypto-friendly regulatory frameworks, or even just quite simply regulatory frameworks. And those are attracting a lot of developers. And so the United States is the best place in the world to build a blockchain company currently. I don't know if that's going to necessarily keep being the case.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you, Austin. All right,
Yeah.
Look, as we finish off this part of the podcast, then just for anyone listening who is perhaps hasn't used Solana before, or indeed is interested in learning more about your goals at the Solana Foundation, just where should people go? What should people do?
So one of the best places is just Solana.com. If you're a developer, there's Solana.com/developers, tons of information up there as well to look at. And what I would say though is get a little bit of Sol and start playing around on the network. Download Phantom or Glow or Solflare or any of these great wallets for the Solana blockchain. And transaction fees are so low that with $1, you can actually go and experiment with a ton of different applications and sort of see what's possible and see what it's like to use the Solana network.
Excellent. Thank you. I reckon we go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off by running Austin through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 second.
All done.
You mean the toast?
Something tastier. I've just copied an elite trader on BitGet. One click and it's done.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't have to sit here manually spying on the moves of smart money and crypto and copying them. I just have to click once, sit back, and BitGet does the rest.
You are so lazy.
It's about working smarter, not harder. Copy it until you make it.
Hands off, gains up. Start copy trading on BitGet.
All right, we are back and I'm with Austin Fedora. Austin is the head of strategy at Solana Foundation. I guess stewarding all good things for the Solana blockchain network. Austin, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it, Austin. Just going to run some questions at you. Just want kind of, a hot take style answers, but no right or wrong way to do it. Question 1 for you, Austin. Where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I think Bitcoin is one very small part of blockchain. It's the most highest market cap today. I don't think that's going to be true forever. We owe a lot of our existence to Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is just one thing, and I think it's great at doing that one thing, but the scope of blockchain technology is so much larger than just Bitcoin.
Very well said. Wouldn't have expected you to say anything less. Thank you, Austin. What would you say, though, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Oh, boy. I think the self-custody mindset is going to stick in this space. I think a lot of folks right now are trying to figure out ways that you can basically make semi-custodial solutions to make it easier to onboard people. People learned how to type HTTP:// into a web browser, right? Wallets are not hard to figure out. Self-custody is not hard to figure out. We just need to build compelling enough applications to force people how to learn how to use this stuff.
Yeah, so I suppose that's true. It is still, the custody thing, it is a sticking point though, because people can use a wallet, but it's, it's writing down a seed phrase and then not losing it. That kind of stuff is, it's a bit weird for people.
Yeah, I think it's a bit weird for people, but I don't think it's weirder than a lot of the other technology we use. I think it's just the value proposition isn't as clear to most people today.
Yeah, good way of putting it. All right. Austin, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So look, 10 years time, whatever you like here, Web3, blockchain, Solana, what does it look like in 10 years time?
I think in 10 years time, most financial systems, and in fact, most data integrity systems in the world are using blockchain for a significant portion of their applications. It doesn't mean these are going to be public blockchains necessarily. This may be that private blockchains get adopted as internal company systems. But one of the cardinal sins, the original sin of the internet, is it was not built to make trust easy to establish. It was built assuming you could trust everyone, and blockchains are built assuming you can trust no one. And I think that programming paradigm, that software paradigm, solves a lot of pain points today for people. And we're just starting to see enterprises and businesses start to take use of this technology. I think the next 10 years are going to be a wholesale adoption.
I love it. All right. Austin, sci-fi author William Gibson said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
There's so many examples of this. I think there's small day-to-day practical examples like go to Tokyo and use the metro system and compare that to any other public transit network in the world, right? It is cheaper, it is 1,000 times better. The future is there, right? It's not everywhere else at this point. And there's a lot of other examples of this too. I think from medical technologies, we're actually at a place where we really actually do know how to make humans live a third longer than they do today. And that is available to a certain class of wealth today. I think we're going to see that kind of scale out over time and longevity medicine become a much bigger thing. We'll sort of see, I think how that goes. But to this point, and this is a little bit different than the quote, inventing technology is easy. Creating the cultural paradigm that makes that technology useful, that is the thing that takes a very long time. And so I think often both the UX and the cultural acceptance of a technology dramatically trail where that technology actually is today. And so the future is usually here for those willing to deal with it. The future is not necessarily allowed in a broad spectrum yet.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of expanding on that quote, Austin. I think you're exactly right. And look, to use your example of let's say the longevity movement, right? So there are these, let's just say, longevity influencers, if you like. There are people out there that are experimenting with all sorts of protocols and supplement stacks and exercise routines and cold plunges and hot saunas and all that good stuff. But to go down that path requires a set of skills, everything from discipline to a little bit of money and the time and energy to do it. Whereas if we're talking about America, the average American is stuck in, a dead-end job, and the kind of food options that they have are almost designed to make them obese and sick. So it's kind of a weird world that we live in where those two things are true, right?
Yeah, there's also this whole thing about this is a little bit different, right? But people are very focused on what they can quantify. They're very focused on numerical metrics, right? So, how many extra years can I live if I take this supplement every day? It says nothing about how enjoyable your life is going to be. It says nothing about how much you're going to use that time. Are you going to use that time? Right. This is I think this is the biggest paradox of modern society, is that we're filled with a whole series of convenience optimization technology, whether that's Uber and DoorDash and, meal delivery boxes. And at the same time, we're spending all of our money on streaming services and watching TV. And it's this very weird mix of my time is very valuable, therefore I need efficiency tools, but also I need to be engaged by something else so much I'm willing to pay large amounts of money to be engaged by other things. It's a very interesting paradox.
Yeah, it's the Brave New World, amusing ourselves to death kind of idea. Yeah, fascinating. All right, brings us nicely really to the final question, Austin, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, a film, or TV show?
This is a hard one. This is a really hard one. So I think comprehensively, I really think that, how should you call it? The Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, Children of the Mind, 3 books, and Ender's Game, which comes before it by Orson Scott Card, are exceptional. They're not just sci-fi, they're sort of philosophical sci-fi at a level too, but really, really interesting. They're kind of old at this point, but I think they really hold up very well. The other one is, and I forget the author's name, Children of Time, that series of books, which is sort of about non-human intelligences and their relationship to how humans exist. That is also a book I would highly recommend to folks as well.
Yeah, Children of Time, Adrian Tchaikovsky, I think.
That sounds correct. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. 2015, I think that was published. All right, well, great choices. Thank you for sharing that, Austin. And look, thank you so much for spending some time with us on the show. Very much enjoyed hearing your perspectives on everything from, sci-fi to longevity influences, and of course, all of the good stuff that you and the team are working on at the Solana Foundation. I guess just to close it out, again, make the case for why people should use Solana. And look, if you're on Twitter, look, shout out your Twitter as well, or X, whatever we're calling it. Sorry.
Yeah, look, I think blockchains are going to be technologies that really impact the future of almost all types of software. And so it's worth getting some exposure to that, experimenting with what that looks like to you. If you work for a large company, you should have a blockchain pilot program going on somewhere, right? I think these things are really powerful and impactful. And, today the types of things you can build on Solana, you can't really build anywhere else. So that's incredibly exciting to see. So, I'd suggest people sort of take a serious look at blockchain technology and not just sort of listen to sort of some of the skeptics that talk about, problems with the tech. There's problems with every tech. There's problems with every form of government. There's problems with everything, right? Being a skeptic is the easiest thing to do in this life. It's the easiest thing to do. The hardest thing to do is to look at something that's not fully there and say, you know what, I can see where I can make something on this, and then go build something with that inspiration. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Austin_Fedora.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Austin.
Yeah.
All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks.
All right, there you go. That was Austin from the Solana Foundation. Yeah, enjoyed that. Very smart guy. Yeah, some great perspectives there from Austin. Yeah, some really good answers and the hot take around. So well done, Austin. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening, team. Please do make sure you're subscribed to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. Thanks to BitGet, our sponsor. And yeah, we reached the end of another episode. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See you.